Bismillah. Assalamu alaikum and welcome to the next episode of the Entrepreneurs Podcast. Today I have a very special guest, Brother Muhammad. Assalamu alaikum, Brother Muhammad. How are you?
وعليكم السلام كاتب. How are you, Maruf? Thank you for having me, mashallah. Jazakallah khair.
It's beautiful. It's beautiful to have you here. We've been trying to, we have known each other probably at this point over 10 years. How I
Yes.
know is that when I was starting my first business, I remember at that time he had this most of you guys may know him by his blog, Productive Muslim blog, and we called him, he's known as Abu Productive, mashallah.
The old name.
So we have known each other over 10 years, but eventually we got met, I think first time in Dubai, but then it was meant to be today. So we're gonna, inshallah, invite him to the podcast. He was generous enough to give his time. And the point is to share his story. And that's what it is. If you're ready, Siri, we're gonna start. Bismillah.
Bismillah. Let's go.
Okay. So the first question is always like starting from the early childhood, right? We're talking about little Muhammad. Um, the idea is like whom you are today. So looking back, Sidi, what do you remember? What's your early memories? What do you think? Maybe you want to share. Of course, childhood is a big thing, but looking back where you are today, what do you think? What are the early memories? Some kind of things do you think that affected who you are today? Anything is welcome.
Sure. What comes to mind, like Bismillah, Alhamdulillah, wa salatu wassalam ala Rasulillah, first and foremost. What comes to mind for me is spending summer months in my grandfather's shop in Tanzania. So my grandfather used to have a wholesale shop in Tanzania in the middle of Dar es Salaam, which is like a very busy sort of street of wholesalers. And I was just sitting there spending hours basically buying and selling, right?
You
And
are business
just
guy from the beginning.
just buying and selling, buying and selling. And it's just that rhythm of life. And for me, I guess at that time it wasn't called entrepreneurship, but just running a business seemed like a legitimate way of living and earning a good income and feeding your family and taking care of your children and family. And my grandfather embodied that. He was somebody who migrated from Yemen, from Hadramaut to Tanzania very early on, and he started off selling vegetables on the street and slowly, opened a shop. And but subhanAllah, by the time he passed away, he had like multiple properties and he was, had a big family. So for me, it just that was perhaps one of the most impressionable thing, not just the business part, but also how he did business.
Mm.
It was very relaxed. It was very chilled. Wasn't stressful,
He had an inner
wasn't
peace. Had an inner
yeah,
peace.
there's inner peace, if but
Mm.
money comes, alhamdulillah, money doesn't come, alhamdulillah. Some days are good days, some days are bad days. You don't seem affected by that sort of the ups and downs of business. He's just doing
Beautiful.
his thing, being honest. Charity was a big part. I remember people would show up and without even saying a word, he'll give the money. So almost like an understanding that they have a right to the charity. It's almost like they deserve it. They're not asking you. You actually have to make sure you give. So there's this whole ecosystem around the business, which I really sort of, I guess, got the most of. So I
Beautiful.
think that would be the memory that really helped shape me in terms of where I am today. Especially in that, remember those days, the narrative was you study, you work hard, you get a job, right? That was the narrative. And anything else felt like, what are you
Not
doing? Like,
stable. Not stable.
yeah,
Risky.
not
Risky.
stable. So to have that experience early on made an impact in me saying, okay, Bismillah, let's see how this goes, inshallah.
Beautiful. Beautiful. So that's such a beautiful story. Such a beautiful legacy he left on you, impression on you. So tell me, what do you remember going to school? What did you study? And what were your interests? Like, because the reason I'm asking this question is we always ask is this question. It's like later on you understand. We're gonna connect to what you're doing today. Did you know like where you were studying? What is it something you like? Were you in particular things you were interested in? What kind of caught your curiosity at school? Were you a good student, by the way?
Uh, I was a good student in a way, but I grew up in Saudi, so I studied in Saudi Arabia in Arabic schools mostly. At that time, we had multiple subjects, and it was very test-based, very sort of memorization-based
Mm.
sort of education. I enjoyed it. I honestly, I was one of those students who kind of liked to get good grades, like the teacher's pet, Of course, having parents with a little stick behind you also helps. So that kept me on the straight path, so to speak. Um, but I think and that I will say I credit the Arabic school that I went to giving me the Islamic foundation, right? A
Mm.
very strong, good Arabic and Islamic foundation.
Mashallah.
And then when I turned year eight or eighth grade, I switched over to a British system. And that
Mm.
time, because you're living in Saudi as expatriates, we weren't allowed to attend universities in Saudi. We had to leave. So my parents, thinking ahead, said, "Oh, let's just put them in a British system so that eventually they can go UK, US, Canada,
Mm.
so to speak." So that's when I switched to a British system, and the British was completely different, right? It
Mm.
was a lot more just the style of teaching. There was no teacher beat you up. I'm like, that's weird. So there was all these experiences I had, but I usually credit the British system for formulating my critical thinking skills and my also just the character in terms of being able to public speaking and pushing me to do things. For example, I took the IB curriculum, so there's a lot of
I do, yes.
creativity, a lot of in volunteering, doing stuff outside normal school hours.
Mm.
So those are the two kind of experiences. So you got Islamic foundation, you got the creativity and sort of service ideas and doing things outside of normal started kind of shaping me. At the same time, during this whole period, I was also very actively involved in a small Dawah center in Jeddah. There was a Dawah
Interesting.
center in Jeddah which wanted, basically, they needed help because there was no good English speakers, English Da'is. So I was given an office, which was actually a bathroom turned into an office. And they said to me, Hamad, there's a stacks of letters here,
Mhm.
and you just spawn back to all these letters. People ask about Islam. So I sat there, literally, pen and paper. Guess where the copywriting skills comes from. And I started responding to letters, for like a whole month. That's kind of my whole thing. So I think that
Sincerely, one quick question I want to understand
yeah,
here. So what you're saying, like this English like letters, where are they coming from? Is it from Saudi or from outside?
all over the world, all over the world,
Oh
people are
my
discovering
God.
because they publish pamphlets about Islam. Like, those one of those basic
Oh.
pamphlets. What is Islam? Who is
Mm.
Isa? Islam and religious. Like it was interesting. One of those small pamphlets, the one you picked up on the streets, and they were shipped around the world, right?
Mm.
Through embassies, through people da'is kind of buying bulk, and at the back has the address. So a
Mhm.
lot of sometimes are prisoners. I remember there was a Thai prisoner who
They
used
are
to actually
they are writing actual letters, not email.
actual letters, multiple pages, and asking questions. And
Subhanallah.
I remember there's one Thai prisoner who I actually had multiple conversations with. Like I would send letters, he would send me back, and it was fascinating. It was one of the most, again, formative experiences in my
What year are we
childhood.
talking about? What year is this city?
I was 15, 16 years old, right? So I was a teenager at that time. And again, Allah's blessing and guidance where at those years, you're a
Is it 2000s?
teenager,
Is it, you would say it was 2000s or
I would
earlier?
say early, no, like late 90s, early 2000s, yeah.
Okay,
Because
okay.
I went to university in 2004, so it must be, yeah, 2000s between 99, 98 kind of thing.
I
And
had
just
no
that
idea you had
experience.
this experience. Beautiful.
Yeah, it was that experience. And subhanAllah, things about how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protected me. Because, imagine summer months, you're
Mhm.
bored, right? What do you do? And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala kind of puts me in this corner, in this bathroom office to write letters, not knowing that years later, that will plant the seed for the da'wah work. And that will plant the seed of me writing as well and responding and
Beautiful.
being
You're
able to
building your
communicate with
skills,
people.
building your skills.
Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that's all Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Again, obviously, you don't plan these things. My parents
Yeah,
never planned these things. Just Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala kind of guiding.
that's
So yeah,
beautiful.
so I'm thinking that in terms of pillars, so you have the Islamic Foundation Arabic School, you have the character building, creativity building in the
Mhm.
British school, then you have this thing in between that's happening,
Beautiful. Like,
and
I
that
mean,
kind
did
of
someone force you to do this, or did you figure it out yourself, or like how?
no, it's again Allah, I'll say Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Like this is where it's so hard. Sometimes people say, oh, I wanna, because of these experiences, you just ask Allah for guidance. I know my parents' du'as and my
Mhm.
grandparents' du'as, I don't know, but something just Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is guiding.
Alhamdulillah.
And then when I came to university's period, and I'm like, okay, choose a subject. I'm like, I don't know, like, oh, I want to be an accountant because I thought they get paid well, right? And then
You
after a
deal with the money.
while,
You deal with the money. So how could go
yeah, it's
wrong?
like where the money is. Like, yeah, I'll be an accountant. Everyone laughed at me, accountant. Oh my God, Muhammad, you accountant? I was like, sure, I'll do accountant. And then they're like, okay, no, I actually don't want to be accountant. I want to be an Islamic banker because that was now the rise Islamic banking, right? The
Okay.
2000s. There's this whole interest Islamic banking. Okay, I'll be an Islamic banker.
MashaAllah.
But then the first step, I gotta just be a regular banker, I guess. I gotta get the, the basic understanding of finance investment. So I chose economics and finance.
Mhm.
purely out of just wanting to get into the Islamic finance field, but not knowing really what I'm getting myself into, basically.
And then what did you study
So I studied in Bristol University in the UK.
in the UK? Yeah.
And again, subhanAllah, because I chose an quote unquote easy subject, right? Economics, finance, no, that was not hard. Sorry for any economics students out there. It's not that hard. This is just economic finance, had a lot of free time. And because a lot of free time, again, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala kind of used me to get involved in the Islamic society, right?
Mhm.
ISOCs, right? So now again, the Dawah scene is picking up again. I'm involved in Dawah, I'm involved in
Mhm.
events, I'm involved in getting lectures, inviting lecturers, speakers,
Is
and it's
that you
getting
you 2000, 2003, 2000, 2000s?
2004, 2009 now.
Gotcha,
So
wow.
just getting into the whole Dawah scene post 9/11, really just, just doing events, Islamic Awareness Week, getting involved with so many little halaqas, giving Friday khutbahs because there's no Friday khutbahs. So I had to stand up and give Friday khutbah. Again, public speaking, getting some training Allah subhanahu has used to train to my public speaking, giving public workshops. And that's kind of where kind of all came together because then I realized, wow, I'm actually enjoying this more than my studies. In fact, my first year I almost failed. I almost failed at first because I was having too much fun doing this Islamic work. Plus, I was
That's
doing also I like part-time job. I worked as a window cleaner. I worked as a grocery shop, guy. I worked as an interpreter.
you were on your
So
own in UK. You
on
were
my
on
own,
your own. Yeah, yeah, I
on
see.
my own, on my own. So I just enjoyed everything but the studying part. I was like, like this, the whole studying part was like, yeah, I got to do it, but I'm enjoying my extra activities a lot more,
I see.
which to my parents' horror, they're like, what are you doing?
That was my actual next question, right? So when I ask at this part of the interview, I ask a question, it's a journey. Like either at this point you take a career path, right, employee path, or you took the entrepreneur path. So it seems in your case you took as you thought it was an easy choice, like economy. I'm going to account to the banker. You thought that path, but then while you're doing that, you're exploring this other thing, whatever that is yet, we don't know yet. You will keep enjoying. And then my question is, Gaz, so what happened next? Did you finish your study? Did you start did you start work or that gets
Yeah,
interesting now?
finished my studies 2007, now 2008, and then I had nothing to do, so I finished a bachelor's. I'm like, now what? But like, okay, let me do a master's. I told my parents, master's 1 year. I'll get a master's degree in UK. It's easy. I'm like, okay, do master's. Yalla, bismillah, do master's. And then that was just me buying time because I have no idea what I'm going to do, right?
Mm.
So I'm doing my master's, and in my master's, that's when that was now in 2007,
Mhm.
2008, and November 2007 is when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala inspired me with this productive Muslim, right? So I wake up one day, Fajr, I'm like, productive Muslim, these two words, they connect so well. And that time, 2007, was the whole blogging scene was starting, right? I was getting people
Mhm.
blogger.com, there was all these like online platforms building. So I'm like, and again, the writing was coming like, I want to write, I want to just do something.
You had experience with the Dawah.
The writing, the
It's
letters, like
coming.
it's coming, I want to write something. I had these things to write. I knew that I was, alhamdulillah, at that time good at writing because I was writing a lot of emails to newsletters for my Islamic society, all the stuff. So writing came like this, I need to write publicly now. So productness.com was born, but then I was middle of my master's. I
I want
took,
to pause you. I want to pause your city here for a second because you had this idea, you had this thing, and you took action. How long did it take before you had the idea, bite the domain, and start writing? I want to ask you this question, if you don't mind.
the same morning. So I remember waking up, seeing productive Muslim pop in my head and getting excited about it, praying Fajr, going to pray Fajr, came back, booked the domain name, started my first article. And that was like,
Subhanallah.
I think Squarespace. I used squarespace.com at that time. And I just
Subhanallah.
wrote the first article. And again,
Subhanallah.
actually to your point, I would say, subhanAllah, if I just waited a week or two or kind of ruminated or thought, I think I would not be here today. Basically, the whole trajectory was taking action immediately after the idea came up and not letting just that idea pass, basically. Alhamdulillah.
That's ajib. That's ajib, isn't it? That's ajib. Like that thought. And I really commend you you taking that action. A lot of times, a lot of people, let me think about it, what it is. Let me think about more domain names. But respect. May Allah make
So,
it.
Allah
Wow.
bless me, alhamdulillah.
Beautiful.
Allah made
Continue, because Kari,
amazing.
I just want to take this lesson for all of us, right? Sometimes there's ideas you have to take action. You cannot just keep thinking, whatever that is. Keep
Yeah,
on.
yeah,
Sorry, continue the story. Sorry, just want to really highlight
absolutely.
this
No,
point.
no. So then, so I started the blog, and then, but this is 2007, so I'm still doing my
Mhm.
master's degree, and I realized I started writing articles, started putting stuff out there. Again, no feedback. Of course, I have no idea. Like some people write liking comments. I sharing some stuff. SubhanAllah, actually, one of the first people I shared this with was Sheikh Ahmed Sharif. At that time, he was just kind of started off, and he brought one of the very few people who comment to say, "You are a star, great work, keep up this work." That was like nice, encouraging. Like, may Allah have mercy on him, and a few others, like just like people just starting to see this thing of Barakah Muslim. But then after that, I was getting busy. I was doing my master's degree, so I had to shut
Hmm.
the website down. And
Oh,
at the same
you shut the
time,
website down.
yeah, I was like, who's a stupid idea, productive Muslim? Who's gonna read this stuff,
I
right?
see.
I was like, so I'm like, put it away. I need to focus again. I was like,
But I
the
mean, you
whole
shut the whole
part of
thing
my
down, or you just
the
left it?
whole thing down. The blog was like, I just turned it off. Because again, Squarespace
Oh,
is monthly payments, right?
oh
I'm
yeah,
like, I
yeah.
like turn the whole thing off. I don't have no time for this. I need to focus and be serious, right? My parents getting older. Like, how many you need me to be responsible now? And this whole pressure of just doing the right thing, right? I've got to study, I've got to this, I've got to work, I've got a job. This is nice, but it's not gonna help, not gonna get me anywhere. Um, so I just alhamdulillah finished my master's degree. Now after master's degree, I'm like, dang, what do I do now? Right. So I'm like completely floored.
Reality kicks.
Reality kicks in. I had a part-time job, doing some after-school activities for kids in some school. But I'm like, I need to find a job now to apply.
You were in UK at this time. You went back to
I was still in
Saudi.
the UK at that time. I
Okay.
was still in the UK again. Do I stay on the UK? Do I go back to Saudi? But even going back to Saudi is difficult because now above a certain age, you can't go back. So for me, it was like Tanzania or
So
Saudi.
I don't know, Siri. For some reason, I always thought you are originally from Saudi. I don't know why I thought that. Because you look like, I don't know, how you speak and how you. So you're originally from Tanzania, right? Origin.
Tanzania of Yemeni ethnicity. So that's our
Got you,
background.
got you, got you, got you. Wow.
So it's like, okay, the Tanzania or find a job or stay in the UK.
Mhm,
So I was like, okay.
mhm.
So I know again, no plans, no vision, nothing. I decided to experiment some things. Then I realized, you know what? This whole, but then that, the famous story of the 10-year-old boy emailing me and saying, "Hey, why did you shut the website down? I love reading your blog." I'm like, "Oh, wow, I have a true fan. Someone actually wants to read my
MashaAllah.
blog."
Really?
Right? That inspired me to start again.
It's an email or a letter?
It was an email. It was an email that he emailed me from the website. I think it was the website email that time. And he goes, "Hey, I love your stuff. Why didn't you stop writing?" And I was like, "Oh my goodness!" And
And
actually,
how
it
do
was
you know he
actually
was 10 years old? How you know he was 10 years old?
my flatmate's brother. He was my
Oh,
flatmate's brother.
that's how you know.
Says I knew he was a 10-year-old brother. MashaAllah, Ali, I was like, oh, okay. So that inspired me to start again. But then something about it at that time, subhanAllah, I made that decision, I think, which was again Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala guiding me. It was where before when I started the blog, I was kind of reading the David Allens, the
Hmm.
all those the famous Western Islamic self-help, or the same famous Western
Non-Islamic,
productivity
yeah.
stuff,
Yeah.
and kind of
Get
translate
things
and
done, right? Get things done.
getting things
Mhm.
done and 7 habits and all that stuff. And I was taking those books and I was kind of like sharing what I'm learning from that to the Muslim world. That was kind of my
Mhm.
idea.
Mhm.
But I something didn't sit well with me with that. And again, when I came across that hadith, the early hours, there's
Yeah.
burika li ummati bukuriha, right? There's barakah in the early hours of my ummah. Realize, wait a second, is actually I need to do the other way around. What
Mhm.
is it in our faith? What is in the Quran and the Sunnah and the Seerah that actually inspires us to become productive? And I felt that angle would be unique, that angle would stand out more. So that's when I decided to restart the website in, I think it was June 2008.
Mhm.
And that's when it kind of officially started. And alhamdulillah, continued since then, basically.
So you were not, so first, in the first iteration, you were a translator of the Western thought to Muslim thought. I'm just analyzing. The second one, no, 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 no. I'm gonna revive it. Islamic
Yes,
thought.
I'm
Yeah,
gonna
that's what it
be.
is.
And that time there was not much productivity stuff in the Muslim speak. Like you don't hear imams of productivity.
Mm.
You don't hear like the
It's new.
whole
It's new. It's new. Quite
genre,
new.
like
Yeah.
productivity Islam. Like it was almost like a clash of civilization there, because people thought productivity is all very capitalist, very
Mm.
sort of, and there's something very almost anti-Islamic about it. And I just kind of rebranded and rethought the whole thing, like from the Islam worldview, take the good and leave the bad, right? So
Yeah,
kind
yeah,
of
of
thing.
course.
Um,
Because
and then
you don't be the part where that just for the sake of productivity, you want to be that part probably. That's where you come from.
absolutely. And then that's when things got interesting because then I'm like, okay, this became, I got excited about it, right? So I started writing more regularly. I started getting invited, first time, people at university will say, hey, can you come to a workshop? I'm like, whoa, like I'm getting invited to a workshop. Like that's weird. And
Mm.
getting paid for it. I'm like, oh,
Mm.
okay, it's interesting.
You can
Like,
make money from this.
I know, like, hey, I can actually make money from this. Like, what? So I'm getting invited, I'm getting, workshop. But then at that time, subhanAllah, I got accepted to work as I joined this young professional program, part of Islamic Development Bank in Saudi.
Yeah.
And, it was a
In
good
Jeddah. I think it's
position,
in
good
Jeddah, I
job,
believe, right? Is it usually in Jeddah?
Jeddah.
Yeah.
So I thought, oh wow, this came up. My parents were happy because they're already there, and they're like, great, I'm gonna come back. Alhamdulillah, awesome. So I'm like, okay, cool. So I just packed up my bags. So this was 2008, 2009. I packed up my bags, went to Saudi. But it was that again, that time the online space was booming. Copy blog was coming up.
Mhm.
Platforms like courses like Teaching Sales, launch formula by Jeff Walker was
Yeah, Jeff
starting.
Walker,
Like,
yes.
there's all these like the idea of making money online and launching products and launch online courses specifically was starting off. I'm like, oh, this is getting really exciting.
Adfluent, passive income.
Fast, oh yeah, SPI, right? All of these. So I'm like, damn, this is some really interesting stuff here. So I'm excited about that stuff, but then I have my job now, right? So I'm in Saudi doing my job,
You're in this dilemma, in this duality.
dilemma. But I'll be honest, up until the point, I never thought of it as serious business. I thought it was like a nice hobby. Like, oh, this is
Mm,
good. Hobby pays money, awesome. Never in my life, even when I moved, my job was like, I'm gonna be in this job for the rest of my life. Like, alhamdulillah, it's a
mm,
good job, good salary, good benefits. Like, who in their right mind would leave this job? Like,
mm.
this is out of the question for me that I would leave that job. For me was, yeah, I have this thing called Product Muslim. It's my side hustle, side thing,
Sure.
side gig. Makes money, alhamdulillah, awesome. Extra pocket money. But at the same time, and also it was more mission driven there. Like I was like, there's a meaning behind. I got more meaning and purpose
Yeah.
behind the work I was doing, versus the thing. Fast forward 2011, things got serious when I got started inviting internationally. So now I'm not just the UK, but now I got Singapore inviting me, Malaysia's inviting me, and I'm like, what's going on here? Like,
You're owning that domain, like that thing, productivity thing, huh?
yeah, I got 1 million followers on Facebook, and I'm like, what's going on? Like, things are just really ramping up quickly.
Yeah.
And that's when it's like, this could be serious. So 2011 was I thought, okay, this could be a full-time thing, but I don't know, sure how. So I actually registered as a company. That's my first time as a company, 2011 officially. Before that was just like, my personal stuff. So I registered as a company 2011 in the UK at that time. In 2011, 2012, 13, I got married. And it's funny because my wife, she could see that I became alive doing product Muslim stuff, but I was like dead and depressed doing my day job stuff. And she's like, why are you doing this to yourself? Right? Like, you seem to be really
Why?
passionate.
Earlier I was listening to a book, and then that the guy says, I can't remember who said it, but he says most people they die when they are 25 years old, but they get buried when they're 75. So you were at your job, you were like dead. That's what you're saying, almost. Yeah.
Yeah,
SubhanAllah.
I'm dead. I'm depressed. I don't want to get out
Mm.
of bed. Like those are signs of depression. You don't want to get out
Yeah,
of
yeah,
bed.
yeah.
You don't have no appetite. Like just thinking about work was, but as soon as Productive Muslim comes, if I'm doing a workshop, if I'm doing a training, any vacation I had, I would just travel and do some
You're in the
training or
flow.
workshops. I'm like, I feel alive. My wife's like, whoa, like you're becoming a whole different person, right? Then it's like, okay, now it's like it's getting to the point where it's getting, and then something else hit me that it's had such a large following at that point that I couldn't shut this website down anymore.
No,
Like,
not
you know,
anymore.
not anymore. It's not before. Like, yeah,
Responsibility.
there's a responsibility, right? People are following. I remember I used to I write much more regularly. And one weekend I spot didn't write. And people was like, Ima, are you okay? What happened? Like, is everything fine? So I'm like, dang, now it's like, this is work. And that's like, it's a response. I didn't show up, right? And that was where there's this phrase that came across which I find very powerful. The dream became bigger than the dreamer. Right? You
Mm,
realize, okay, this is now becoming much more than just a hobby. This needs
mm.
to become more serious. So I thought I'll try to manage it by hiring a team.
I
Right.
see.
So I hired my assistant, hired volunteers, trying to content editors, trying some writers. I'm trying to manage this thing, but it's still, I knew I had to make it sort of full time.
Mhm.
So made the dua 2011. I remember going to Mecca, just making sincere dua, Allah, like I want this to be full time, make it happen. Because I had no idea how it's gonna happen. I had responsibilities, I had my parents, I had a job, all this stuff. Like, how will I ever leave all of that for something that's completely uncertain? But subhanAllah, 2015, there was an opportunity to go to the US for me
Mm.
to carry on doing my master's degree there. And I was
Okay.
fascinated with this idea of like,
So,
okay,
brother, so here, when you say master's degree, are you still talking about the economy? Still?
No. So now
Okay,
I
okay.
realized I made a decision. I need to become more grounded in this field, the field I'm in right now,
Gotcha,
the whole
gotcha,
org
gotcha.
development,
I see,
leadership,
I see.
training. So there's a UT Dallas course. Although okay, so I thought that was this is my exit basically. I took a leave without pay from my employer, so I have my
Mhm.
base where I leave without pay, which means I could come back to the same job. At the same time, this will be a time
Still
for
with
me to,
Islamic Development Bank.
yeah.
Okay,
So
okay.
this would be a time for me to really try it out. Like I'm actually going to be in the US. I'll have time. I'll do my study on the side. At the same time, I can do this full time and see, can I
Mhm.
really live off this? Can this become a full-time business, or is this just a
Fantastic.
nice hobby they should go back to?
That's
And
a
that's
test,
when
reality test, let's
exactly,
say.
exactly, exactly, exactly. So that's how the switch happened, alhamdulillah. And then never looked, I never I left and never came back. So that was what happened,
Yeah, still
basically.
waiting for you.
So I'm still no, alhamdulillah. It's funny. Recently, I got hired back as a consultant. So it's funny because at that time when I was with them, I kept telling them I want to do this productivity stuff
Mhm.
and leadership stuff, and they're like, no, 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 you just do your risk management thing and don't do this. And now they hired me as a consultant to do the exact same thing I was trying to tell them about leadership and training and coaching and all
Alhamdulillah.
that. So subhanallah.
So all come back, revolve around and come back. That's amazing. And you can
Thanks.
do what you do. That's beautiful. So
Absolutely.
so that's a beautiful turnout. Um and other things I want to discuss with you today is the two books you wrote. I listened both of them on audio because I couldn't do. I'm not good at reading. I don't have much time. Kids run around, so I enjoyed both of them. Alhamdulillah. I just finished a couple of days ago. I just wrote you like it came the Barakah effect. Lots of beautiful stories. Um, like why don't if you can tell us like what was the background story? Why did you write the books? I mean, like, how did it come? I know it's not easy to write a book, right? And give us some highlights, like, who is it for? Why should people who are listening should check it out, if you don't mind?
Yeah. So back in 2000, again, back 2011, that time period, I was starting to switch between this is now more serious than just a nice blog.
Mhm.
I realized I needed something to anchor, now something really to anchor me. And I think a book was the best thing. I was seeing all this, again, I was trying to see what others are doing. And like every serious one of these training education platforms, they have a book, right? Think about all the big guys at that time, like they all have a book. So I need to have a book, right? So I realized I need a book. And also at that time, I realized the body of knowledge that I was developing was starting to settle down, meaning
Mhm.
that I'm not changing as much. I'm teaching the same thing over and over again. It means I could really put it into a book. So 2012, I have it at GIS in Dubai, in the first GIS in Dubai. So that again, 11 or 12.
I
I
wasn't there.
met
I came back later
yeah,
on.
I met the CEO of Awakening,
Uh,
well, Chef Sharif.
Shaban, okay.
Yes, Chef Sharif Banna, yes. So I'm asking him, like, hey, I'm thinking of writing a book. Now, that time, Awakening was all into music.
Mm,
They had a publication on, but they stopped it.
okay.
Well, he had this call thing called Product Muslim, and it's, I want to write a book. At first, like, yeah, interesting, interesting. And then I got 1 million followers. Like, say what? So he's like, wait, wait. So for him, the numbers kicked up. Like, wait, you have 1 million followers? And okay, you send us a proposal. Like, okay. I'm like, what's a proposal, right? I had no idea what a proposal is. So I sit down, research book proposals, and I learn about book proposals. I write a book proposal, and I send it to him. He's like, okay, write the book. Snap, how do you write a book? Like, again, like how do you write a book? So I first took the training that I was doing, the
Mhm.
workshop stuff I was doing, and I just basically as if I'm teaching it. So the same sessions as if I'm
Chapters,
teaching
yeah, chapters and
lectures and
stuff.
all that. And I was about to submit that, but subhanAllah, something told me that no, it doesn't feel like a book yet. So
Mhm.
I'm like, I need someone who's an expert with books who can really read this.
Mhm.
And I found Mr. Near El. He was actually the editor of Ryan Holiday's books.
Wow.
And I reached out to him randomly. Again, cold email, not expecting much. And hey, listen, my Mohammed Faris, but Muslim. I used the 1 million followers that time was like a thing. So I used that a
Mhm.
lot. Hey, a
Mhm.
1 million followers. I'm writing my first book. I need your help to help me edit my book. And this guy turns around and he's like, I don't know anything about Islam, Muslims. But if you really want to, I'll do it for $9,000. I'm like, what? I'm like, I'm like, okay. At that time, that's all my savings. I took $9,000. I'm like, here, help me write the book. The guy's like, damn, this guy's serious. So he rented my book and he completely butchered the book. Like he was like, this is
Wow.
not a book. This is a workshop material. This is not a book.
I see.
Completely destroyed my book. Like upside. It's like this, rewrite the whole thing. He completely can change it. And I'm like, okay.
I give you 9,000 to fix it, not to mess it up.
I'm like, yeah, so you gotta do this, not me. But then I had to rewrite the book again. Second time was much better. So then he helped me a lot with that.
Mm,
And then it became this book which was written as a book.
mm,
Then I submitted to Awakening, which then became Claritas, and alhamdulillah became bestseller for them after a few years.
yeah.
So it was that experience of realizing that, and I always say to you, there's Barakah Muslim before the book came out, and Barakah after the book came out, and it's a whole different ballgame. And the book came out just when I left my job. So when I
Mm,
left my job, the book came out, and I would say the books is like a best business card
that's true.
because so many times I have random CEO reach out to me, goes, "Hey, I read your book. Can you come to workshop for my team?" Someone else
That's
like, "Hey, I read your book. Here's I wanted you to do coaching." So it just became the best business card. And that's why I wrote the book. But the experience was so painful, I vowed never to write a book again. I was like, "Khalas, I'm done."
it.
I like this is
It takes you like
too
uh,
much. I'm like, this is too much. But then 5 years later, I was like itching, like, the Barakah thing was starting to pick up.
mm,
And again, I became excited this holiday Barakah. I'm like, you know what? I really need to. Again, one of those weeks where you feel like you need to write the book. It's not just a marketing gimmick or just a book
mm,
for selling. It's like, I need to write this book. There's something about this topic that I struggle with, and I want to teach others about it. And I went to one of the bookstores in Singapore, and I asked, "Hey, do you have a book about Barakah?" He's like, "No, there's no one book about Barakah, but there's bits here and bits there." I'm like, "No, no, no, I'm sure there is." He's like, "No, there isn't." Then he looked at me dead in the eyes, like, "You should write it." I'm like, "Oh, why did you say that?" It's like he puts the responsibility back on you. You're like, ah. So that was 2017, and then of course COVID hit, but alhamdulillah, book finally came out this year. Alhamdulillah.
yeah, I wrote. I read the. Listened to both of them. There was. Yeah, I think that both of them they were different. I don't know. Probably your writing has changed as well because when I was it was a bit different. It was the second one was much more story based, but the first one is was a bit different as well.
That's
Um,
interesting to say that because that was the feedback I got from Nir when I finished Barak Muslim. I told him,
mm,
"Give me advice." He goes, write more stories. He said, when you show more of your personal side.
yeah.
The first was very factual, productive Muslim, da, 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 like it's very like, kind of like you
Mhm.
prose, because no, write more stories. People want to connect with you as an author, show more emotions, show more personality, and you'll be able to write more deeply. The ideas are there. It's just that you need to write in a way that's engaging. So hence I tried that with the second book, basically.
Absolutely. So there's something I want to share with you that I haven't shared with a lot of people. Like one of your, I mean, alhamdulillah, I benefit personally from many of the blog articles you guys have written over the years. But one of your blog articles for me, it was like a game changer. I will tell you which one it is in a moment. But first, I just want to give you a little bit backstory so you understand. Like I in my case, right? I don't know if I shared with you, CD. I also wrote a book, but it was published earlier last year. Because there's some similarities. That's why I'm sharing the story. And like you, Muhammad Sharif, it's related to Muhammad Sharif, rahimahullah, that he was my mentor. I knew him many years, right? And I met him a couple of times. So over the last, if you remember when we started the first business we had, like a social media thing, it's crazy times. But then it evolved to marketing, and now we are doing marketing, investments, advisory, other stuff. So over the last 10 years, I talked to like probably over 1,000, just like this, entrepreneurs and professionals. And like you said, like when you know something happens. Like for me, I talk to these people. Do you remember, like you said, you don't feel good. Like I'm listening to this. Like they come to and tell us, I have this work. Like exactly like you said, I feel bad. I want to do something else. What can I do? I said, okay, you do this, you do this. And I kept repeating myself, all the time. I said, I don't want to do it, but I know it's also writing a book is not easy. Like so I keep delaying it. But then do you remember when the Mohammed Sharif passed away? It was so sad and so shocking. You know about death, but something happens to you, like it shocks you to a core. Like it was the time, if you remember, CD, last year, not last year, sorry, the year before, right, 2022, in Istanbul. Then I read the book. Then I listen to your book. Then I listen to your story, what happened. because I was expecting to see you there, but then you logged in, and then your may Allah have mercy, I think your mother-in-law passed away, right? That's why you
Yes.
left. I was like, subhanallah, like so many deaths at the same time. And then I said, I don't know what's gonna happen. I have to do, because it hits your reality. Is like, I have no idea. I've been prolonging it. I have to do something. And then that's what the first intention I did. I'm gonna do that. And then I don't know how. I was reading this, and then I came along this blog post you guys have. I think that's in partnership with Dr. Abdullah Rahman. Remember the Islamic psychology scene? So when I saw that based on Imam al-Ghazali, I said, Subhanallah, this is what I've been looking for. You know, this is what I've been looking for, because look, like I come from the business world, right? I try to do things, but I know it's missing, and I go to Quran and doing this, but then Imam al-Ghazali and all these guys, you brought this, you guys put it together. So subhanallah, even that thing is in the book, and I will give you credit to you guys, said Allah Rahman. So just that idea, that give the soul of the book, you know, and so may Allah reward you, your team, and Dr. Adra as well. So the book, because the things, a lot of people come to us to do business, it's not about doing business, because everybody do business, right? So that, like what you did, the productivity, the book, what I wrote is like, idea is that how you find your purpose in life. It's not like a wishy-washy word, but actually imagine we are standing on even this interview we are doing, right? We are giving the highlights, is that we always start the book like, it's like, imagine, we hope we give the best benefit to ourselves and to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It's like, imagine, fast forward, we are sitting on the day of the judgment day, and as the Quran says about those who get the book on the right hand, right? The good deeds. Imagine that moment, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and you are so happy, open, and you figure out, wow, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give you Jannat al-Firdaus, the best of the best. And read the first page, highlights. What does it say? What does the brother Muhammad did? What does Maruf did? Or what is this and that? We want you guys to write that moment, be in that state and write what you've done. And it starts with the purpose, right? Then you have to figure out your passion. I mean, that's exactly what you did, right? Somehow also like guided you, then you know what you're good, then you're connecting. And now what you do now, you make a living out of this. It's a blessing. It's a beautiful thing. And so that's the book came about. That's what I was mentioning. So subhanallah, I would, since I brought both of this the books, the first one I read a while ago, but the second one came as well. Anybody who is listening to this, who wants to figure out the barakah, the missing elements which we need to understand. I mean, after reading books like barakah is like, for me, it used to be like a word, but now it's like a concept. Thank you so much. So how do we get there? How do we practice it? And one more thing I want to confess to you is that I learned is that for me internally, the one thing was about the saying salawatu wasalam, right? And this is another thing we need to practice more. And I used to think, alhamdulillah, thank you for that as well. What are the things, Sidi, would you say to the listeners, to the readers? And you can mention your book, you can mention anything, like what are the questions I should have asked, but maybe I have not asked? What are the things you would like to give advice to imagine that there are Muslim sisters, Muslim brothers who are listening. Imagine yourself, imagine myself, I imagine, right? In the beginning, we have no idea. Like, I don't know. That's okay. Not to know is okay. And so what would you advice you would give to yourself or to these people? We are Muslims who are listening to this or watching this and say, look, I feel that way. I feel like Brother Muhammad. I feel like Maruf did. I like other people that we want to do. What would you suggest them? What is the best step to take? What if you have advice, nasiha? That would be a good point.
Absolutely. Inshallah, inshallah. Jazakallah khair, Jazakallah, sharing that and a beautiful story and background. Just to comment on what you said again, death is a great reminder. It's a great it puts things in perspective, right?
Absolutely.
And it really kind of puts that fire underneath you, to an urgency factor comes in. Some of you know, I lost my father recently, and I remember after my father, just that I'm like, oh my God, I actually gave more drive to coming back to purpose, because I realized I feel like this is now time is because who you're next, right? Because those generations leaving now that you are now facing your mortality. Like, okay, I need to really step it up again. So it's very, very powerful, alhamdulillah. Um, Advice I would say is scratch your own itch, right? For
Mhm.
me, for example, I struggle with productivity. And I was
Mhm.
struggling, I was like juggling between my work, my master's degree, and I felt unproductive. So for
Mhm.
me, it's like, oh my goodness, like how do people manage their time and the energy and how do they do all this stuff and have families and kids? So for me, that was the itch I was trying to figure out. So I was trying to scratch my own itch. So when I was writing an article, until today, when I write an article, I'm writing for myself. I'm writing to kind of like, like what is the itch that I'm struggling with? And I'm writing that publicly,
That's the
basically.
best thing.
Yeah, because you know better, and you also become more since more vulnerable and more like you share things that perhaps you're not going to share easily, but you say it from perspective of wanting to help people as well, because others are
Mhm.
struggling as well. The second thing would be, I would say, follow the breadcrumbs, meaning that
Mhm.
Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will put a breadcrumb in front of you. Follow that. And then another breadcrumb, right? Sometimes, and this is one thing I disagree with sometimes, other ways of doing a lot of self-help talk about having a 5-year plan, a 10-year
Mhm.
vision, and a 10-year thing. I was never into that. My story, if I had a 10, I would never imagine I'll be doing this here. Like if I had a vision, so to speak, back then, it would not be this,
That's
right?
true.
Because your vision is based on the knowledge you have at that time
Which
and
is
based on
incomplete.
which is not complete,
Yeah.
the skills you had at that time, which is not the skills I have today, and thinking that you have control over every single fact that happened to you between now and when your vision completed. So for me, I just
It's
never
it's a bit arrogant as well that you think you know the which you don't. Yeah.
and the whole thing of taking photos of best house and I'm like it felt again I would say, and this is where I felt like it felt like you are associating, if you're going to get more philosophical here, it's like you're putting almost like having a little mini shirk because you're having an image of success of what you want versus what does Allah want for me, right? And
Mhm.
how can I be more in tune with what Allah wants for me? So they follow the breadcrumbs, meaning that Allah, like I said, Allah opened the door for me. Okay, the blog. Okay, alhamdulillah, to the blog. Then the workshops. Okay, alhamdulillah, to the workshops. And then this book thing, the book came up. And then this idea of leaving my job. Okay. So he kept on putting the breadcrumbs. I'm just following the breadcrumbs. I have no like grand vision, grand plan. More like just doing what I had to do. And that really felt much more was much more relaxed, more less stressed, and I opened those beyond my expectations. So but I say instead of focusing vision, focusing intention. What's the
Mhm.
niyyah? What's the niyyah? What's the niyyah? And that really grounds you because sometimes, okay, you run a business, right? Sometimes, oh my God, cash flow issues, this issue, that issue. But what's the niyyah, right? Your team issues, what's the niyyah? Some customers stop paying, what's the niyyah? Like coming back to intention will help you stay grounded with all the ups and downs of the business. Again, going back to my grandfather, where we started off with, because he would always tell me whenever I achieve any success, oh, I had good grades. You say, niyyah tayyiba, you have good niyyah. That's it. You won't say good job. You won't say mashallah. You say good niyyah. Like
And when
he'll
you say
temper
good, yeah,
you.
you're saying he means intention, right? That's what he means.
Yeah,
Good intention. I got you.
good intention. He also you have good intention to remind me that's not about, yes, alhamdulillah, the achievements a lot, but those achievements are up to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala if he gave you or not.
Mhm.
But it's about the intention. That's much more powerful. That's much more important, basically. So those are
Absolutely.
my two advice. I mean, I know it's hard. I know it's sometimes and I also say don't need to kind of replicate what we do, right?
Mhm.
And we have a different generation, different times, different ways of doing things. But see what's out there, experiment, try things. Some things fail, some things work, and just enjoy the process, inshallah. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, barakah, inshallah.
Sounds good. So absolutely. So what you're saying is it's um it's not about having exact concrete plans, which we don't know, but having an intention and a sincere niyyah. And
Have intention. I'll
then,
say I have plans. I mean, no,
mhm,
not say I'll say don't have vision. You have plan. Have an idea what you're gonna do. Not like okay, I'm gonna sit here and expect miracles to happen. Have a plan, right? Okay, I'm gonna do 10 workshops. For example, when I left my job, okay, I would do 10 workshops per year. I'll charge this much,
mhm,
and I'll go this kind of like I'm having a plan. I have a proposal to what I'm
mhm,
like, but I'm all I have to do this. But at the same time, not really knowing sure. I don't have an exact image of how the outcome would be. So follow the process. Again, they were talking about the gardener mindset. You
mhm.
have writing
It's
questions,
true.
follow the process, do what you need to do, put the stuff in place, but don't be too attached to an image of success,
There you go.
right? That you feel it, I need to be this, otherwise I'm a failure. Because the only problem is you'll have this image of success, then once there's two things happen. Either you achieve that image and then you feel empty afterwards,
There's
or
another
you
new, another
don't
one,
achieve that
another one comes
another
up.
one. Or you don't achieve this success image of success and you feel like a failure. You always feel like,
Mm.
oh my God, my life was meaningless, versus not realizing all the khair and all the barakah you've been experiencing throughout the process, basically.
So basically, absolutely. So what you're saying is, yeah, you get the. I mean, I think that what you're trying to say, that's the common what they do is like this, the plans may not work out, but the planning is essential, right? It is important, and then do the niyyah, do the intention, and back up by the. It's in the book as well. I know we are highlighting, but read the book, guys. Like it's not just making dua. You have to back up by action, right? There has to be action. There's no like you can just do it your way around, you know. There has to be action. So Alhamdulillah. So I know we promised like 45 minutes. I want to honor that thing. And tell us where people can find your work, or if people can connect you. Like, what do you want them to reach out to you if they have somebody wants to get a book, someone to get your workshop, whatever the best way to connect with your city.
Sure. I think the easiest is just the website, barakah.com. I'll say sign up the newsletter. You'll find a link for the newsletter there. That's where you'll find out more about us. You find the books anywhere you find get books with Amazon or local Islamic bookstores. I'll say if you're gonna buy a physical book, support your local Islamic bookstore. They need a lot of support. However, if you want a Kindle or audiobook, then of course Amazon is there for those who want that. And yeah, I'm really looking forward to listening to people and hearing about their stories, their journeys, and the barakah inshallah ta'ala that they experience, inshallah.
May Allah reward you. May Allah put
Me.
more barakah in what you do, so
وإياكم إن
inspire
شاء الله.
even millions of people. Thank you so
وإياكم إن
much.
شاء الله.
Assalamu alaikum.
وعليكم السلام ورحمة الله. بارك الله فيك.